take a deep breath and settle into a comfortable position. Perhaps you are lying down, the weight of your head resting gently on your pillow, or sitting back in a favorite chair with the world growing quiet around you. This is your time, a gentle space to let your thoughts drift. In this soft corner of the evening, we will step together into history not as tourists rushing through time, but as quiet observers moving slowly through moments that once defined human life. Tonight's journey will carry us far across continents and centuries. From simple villages of medieval Europe to the golden courts of kings. From ancient deserts to jungles where stone temples slumber under tangled vines. Along the way, we'll explore what life truly felt like for the people who came before us, their hardships, their routines, their faith, their mysteries. History often feels like a collection of dates and names, but it is also the creak of a wooden door, the damp smell of rain-soaked earth, and the hushed breath of wind over forgotten ruins. We begin, as all lives do, at the ground level with the peasants, the countless men, women, and children whose days were spent in toil, whose stories rarely found their way into books. Imagine yourself there, centuries ago, when survival itself was a full-time job. Let us travel back to a world without electricity, without engines, without even glass windows to keep out the cold. Close your eyes, if you like, and picture a dim dawn in the year 1350. As the world wakes in a medieval village, the air is cool and heavy, filled with the scent of damp straw and smoke from a fire that has long since burned down to embers. You open your eyes to darkness, not because the hour is early, but because your home has no windows, only a wooden shutter, closed tight against the chill of the autumn night. The faint light seeps through cracks in the rough wooden planks that make up the walls of your hut, but it does little to pierce the gloom. You lie on a mattress made not of feathers or wool, but of straw, flattened and prickly, stuffed into a coarse linen sack. The scent of the bedding is musty, and as you shift your weight, a thin rustle fills the room. Around you, in the shadows, others are sleeping too, your spouse, children, or aging parents. Even the livestock sleeps here. A hen stirs in a wicker cage near the hearth. A small pig lets out a soft grunt as it shifts its weight. These animals are not just a source of food, but of warmth. Their bodies help keep this one-room home from freezing in the winter nights. The year is 1350. Europe is still recovering from the devastation of the Black Death, the plague that swept across the continent only a few years before, carrying away entire families and emptying villages overnight. Its shadow still lingers in whispered stories and fearful prayers, though life has a way of continuing. There are crops to tend, debts to pay, and taxes to deliver. For most people, survival means waking early and working until the sun sets. A soft, scratching sound draws your attention. Fleas, as constant as the air itself, thrive in the bedding and the straw floor. It is not a pleasant thought, but it is a reality so ordinary here that few remark on it. Comfort, in the modern sense, is a luxury you would not know to miss. Someone stirs. The faint creak of the wooden latch announces that the shutter is open, letting in a cold beam of dawn light. It cuts through the smoky air, revealing a space smaller than many modern kitchens. Rough wooden beams supporting a thatched roof. A dirt floor scattered with straw. A small hearth where last night's fire struggles to stay alive. There is little furniture, just a rough table, a bench, and a few wooden stools. Clay pots line a shelf, their rims chipped but serviceable. Your day begins, not with leisure, but with necessity. There is no clock to dictate your schedule. The sun itself is the only measure of time. In the dim morning light, you pull on your clothing, a tunic of rough, homespun wool, dyed in muted tones of brown or gray. Beneath it, a linen shirt and hose provide a thin barrier against the cold. These clothes are coarse to the touch, heavy with wear, patched and mended so often that they carry the memory of years. Shoes, if you have them, are simple leather, stiff and cracked from long days in the fields. A bowl of thin porridge or dark bread awaits you, perhaps flavored with onions or a scrap of cheese, if fortune has been kind. Food is simple and repetitive, a steady rhythm of bread, ale, and what vegetables or legumes can be grown in the small garden behind the house. Meat is a rare luxury, saved for feast days or special occasions. Most meals are washed down with weak ale rather than water, not because ale is indulgent, but because brewing kills harmful bacteria, making it safer to drink. Outside, the world is wet and cold. Mud clings to your shoes, thick and unyielding, as you walk the rutted path that winds between other cottages. The smell of manure is inescapable, mingling with a scent of wood smoke rising from every home. Beyond the village, fields stretch outward, divided into narrow strips of farmland. Each strip belongs to a different family, though the land itself is held by a local lord. Your labor, your rent, your taxes, all of it ties you to this land, and to the manor house that watches over it from a hill in the distance. The tools of your trade are simple and time-worn. A wooden plow drawn by oxen, an iron-tipped hoe, a sickle for cutting grain. You work bent over the soil, hands hardened and cracked from years of digging and planting. Farming is not merely a job. It is the axis on which life turns. The rhythm of your days follows the seasons. In spring, the ground must be plowed and sown. In summer, the crops demand tending, and in autumn, the harvest brings both relief and exhaustion. Winter is quieter, but no less difficult, as families huddle together against the cold, rationing food and firewood to make it through. Life is marked not by holidays in the modern sense, but by the church calendar. Feast days, saints' days, and holy festivals provide brief moments of rest and celebration. But they are deeply intertwined with religion. The village church is the center of life, its bells marking time, and its priest offering guidance, comfort, and warnings of sin. Faith is not a matter of choice. It is as fundamental as the air you breathe. But beneath this sense of routine, there is also vulnerability. The harvest may fail. A fever may sweep through the village. The Lord may demand higher taxes, or a passing army may raid the countryside, taking what little wealth you possess. Fear is not constant, but it is never absent, a low hum beneath daily life. Still, there are moments of peace. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a field in late summer, the crops swaying gently in the wind. The sun warms your shoulders, and though your hands ache from labor, there is satisfaction in seeing the wheat ripen. In the distance, children play near a stream, their laughter soft but bright against the buzzing of bees. The smell of grass and warm earth fills the air. These are small, fleeting pleasures, but they are real and deeply felt. As evening falls, smoke rises once more from the cottage hearths, and families gather around simple meals. The light of tallow candles flickers in the dark, casting soft shadows on the walls. You return to your straw bed, exhausted but steady, ready to repeat the same rhythm tomorrow. In this world, life is not about ambition or adventure. It is about endurance, about carving out a place in a landscape that is at once harsh and familiar. The night deepens. Outside, wolves may howl in the distance, though they rarely come near. The stars are brilliant in the unpolluted sky, glimmering over fields and forests. Inside, the fire fades, and your breath mingles with the soft snoring of your family and the rustle of animals nearby. Life here is difficult, yes, but it is also deeply rooted, tied to the cycles of nature in a way few of us experience today. This is the foundation of history, not kings or battles, but the countless, anonymous people who lived, worked, and loved in the quiet corners of time. Now, let us leave the fields of Europe behind and step further back in time, to a land of desert sun and golden palaces, where a single ruler dared to reshape religion itself. The deserts of ancient Egypt stretch wide and silent under a golden sun. Thousands of years before medieval Europe's peasants rose each morning to tend their fields. Life in this land was shaped by the slow flow of the Nile. Its waters flooded and receded with a steady rhythm, depositing rich black silt that allowed civilization to flourish in an otherwise unforgiving desert. Along the riverbanks, small villages bustled with farmers and fishermen, while towering temples and monumental palaces rose from the sands, their stone walls carved with hieroglyphs that told of gods and kings. It is the 14th century BCE, in Egypt's 18th dynasty, a time of power and splendor. Egypt's wealth is at its height, its army strong, its temples vast. And yet, into this world of order and tradition steps a pharaoh unlike any other, a ruler whose name would almost vanish from history, erased by those who came after him. His birth name was Amenhotep IV, but he is remembered as Akhenaten, the heretic king, the man who defied centuries of religious tradition. Akhenaten's story begins in the glittering court of his father, Amenhotep III, a pharaoh celebrated for his prosperity and architectural achievements. As a young prince, Akhenaten grew up surrounded by opulence, polished limestone palaces adorned with golden furniture, courtyards lined with lotus-filled pools, and servants carrying fans to shield royal brows from the relentless sun. The royal household was a center of ceremony, steeped in a complex web of gods and rituals. At its heart stood Amen, the chief deity, worshipped through a vast network of temples, controlled by a powerful priesthood. When Amenhotep III died, his son inherited not only the throne, but also this vast religious and political system. And yet, almost immediately, Akhenaten began to distance himself from the traditions of his forebears. He showed little interest in honoring Amen or the other gods. Instead, his devotion centered on Aten, the sun, disco-radiant, abstract form of divinity. Depicted not as a personified god, but as a circle of light, its rays ending in open hands that reached toward humanity. The change was subtle at first. A shift in artistic depictions, hymns praising Aten more prominently than other deities. But over time, Akhenaten's devotion deepened into radical reform. He declared Aten not merely the greatest of gods, but the only god. For a civilization that had worshipped a pantheon of deities for centuries, this was a profound upheaval. Temples to Amen were closed, their wealth confiscated. Statues of old gods were defaced or removed. The very name of Amen was erased from inscriptions, chiseled out of stone, in an effort to purge the past. Akhenaten even abandoned the great city of Thebes, long the heart of Egyptian religion and politics, and built a new capital, Akhetaten, the horizon of Aten day. This place is known as Amarna. Rising from the desert in a burst of ambition, the city was laid out with wide streets, spacious villas, and open-air temples designed to embrace the sun. In art, Akhenaten himself was portrayed unlike any pharaoh before him. Gone were the rigid, idealized forms that depicted kings as muscular, unchanging symbols of divine order. Instead, Akhenaten's images showed him with elongated features, narrow limbs, and a soft, almost androgynous body. This artistic revolution mirrored his theological one, reflecting a vision of a god who was both transcendent and intimately connected to the natural world. At Akhenaten's side stood his queen, Nefertiti, whose name means "the beautiful one has come." She was not merely a consort, but a powerful figure in her own right, appearing in temple reliefs as a near-equal partner, offering prayers to Aten alongside her husband. Together, they presented themselves not just as rulers, but as intermediaries between Aten and humanity. Their family life, immortalized in carvings, shows scenes of intimacy rare in royal art. The king and queen seated beneath Aten's rays, playing with their 6 daughters. A sense of domestic warmth, unusual for Egyptian royal imagery. Yet, for all its beauty, Akhenaten's vision was fragile. His religious reforms disrupted centuries of tradition and alienated powerful priests and officials. The closed temples of Amen created resentment, and the costly construction of Akhenaten drained resources. Diplomatically, Egypt's once stable empire began to weaken. Letters from foreign rulers, preserved on clay tablets, known as the Amarna letters, speak of neglected alliances and pleas for military aid that went unanswered. Meanwhile, life in Akhenaten carried on under the sun's unrelenting glare. The city was unlike anything Egypt had seen before. Temples without roofs to allow sunlight to pour in. Courtyards lined with gardens, and palaces decorated with scenes of nature rather than the usual rigid symbols of kingship. But even in its splendor, the city's existence was fleeting. After 17 years on the throne, Akhenaten disappeared from history's stage. The details of his death remain uncertain. Some believe he died peacefully. Others suggest turmoil and rebellion hastened his end. What is clear is that his successors swiftly dismantled his legacy. The boy king, Tutankhamun, better known as Tutankhamun, restored the old gods, abandoned Akhenaten, and reinstated the worship of Amun. The name of Akhenaten was stricken from monuments, and his city was left to crumble in the desert wind. Today, the ruins of Amarna tell a quiet story. The outlines of streets and palaces remain etched in the sand, silent under a sky that has watched over them for millennia. The statues of Akhenaten, once so striking, lie broken, their features worn smooth by time. And yet, fragments of his hymn to Aten survive, lines of poetry that speak softly across centuries. You rise in perfection on the horizon of heaven. All lands are in your hand, for you are the sun. In these ruins, there is a sense of mystery, as though Akhenaten's vision was both a fleeting dream and a glimpse of something enduring. His revolution did not last, but it left an imprint, a reminder that even in the most stable civilizations, there is space for a single, extraordinary individual to reshape belief, if only for a moment. Now, as we leave the desert sands and turn our gaze eastward, we will find ourselves in another place where human ambition touched the sky, this time in the depths of a tropical jungle. Here, towering stone temples once rose above bustling cities, only to vanish beneath vines and silence for centuries. Let us walk softly into the mysteries of Angkor, the lost city of the Khmer Empire. Imagine the slow hum of cicadas filling the air, their steady song weaving through the stillness of an ancient jungle. The scent of warm earth and damp leaves lingers on the breeze, mingling with the faint fragrance of blossoms hidden among the trees. The air is heavy with humidity, and sunlight filters through a canopy of green, breaking into shafts of gold that fall upon silent stones. Here, in the heart of Cambodia, lies Angkor, a city that once ruled an empire, now watched over by banyan trees whose roots twist and curl like ancient fingers around the remnants of a vanished civilization. To walk through Angkor today is to feel time itself slow down. The forest has reclaimed much of what was built here, but even in ruin, the scale of the city is breathtaking. At its height, Angkor was the thriving capital of the Khmer Empire, one of the most powerful and sophisticated civilizations of medieval Asia, beginning in the 9th century. Successive Khmer kings transformed this landscape into a vast metropolis, filled with temples, palaces, reservoirs, and canals that spread for miles. The crowning jewel of this empire was Angkor Wat, a temple complex of such grandeur that even after centuries of neglect, it remains one of the most impressive monuments ever built by human hands. Let us pause to picture it not as we see it now, but as it was at its height. The year is the early 12th century. The ruler, King Suryavarman II, has commissioned a temple that will not only honor the gods, but serve as his eternal resting place. Imagine approaching Angkor Wat, then a long sandstone causeway stretching across a vast moat. The temple rising on the other side, like a stone mountain, its towers shaped to resemble lotus buds. The moat itself is immense, nearly 200 meters wide, reflecting the temple in its still waters like a mirror. The city beyond is alive with the sounds of a thriving empire priests chanting in the courtyards. Elephants moving along packed dirt roads, and artisans chiseling intricate patterns into the stone walls. Inside Angkor Wat, the scale is overwhelming. The temple's galleries stretch endlessly. Their walls covered in carvings that tell stories from Hindu epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, two scenes of gods and demons locked in eternal battles. Kings leading armies and celestial dancers floating gracefully across the stone. These carvings, though worn, still speak with extraordinary detail, their lines as fine as lace, despite centuries of weathering. The Khmer Empire was not only a center of art and religion, but also of remarkable engineering. Its rulers built massive reservoirs, called barays, and an elaborate system of canals to control the seasonal monsoon waters, turning this jungle landscape into a hub of agriculture capable of supporting hundreds of thousands of people. The city of Angkor, at its peak, may have been the largest urban center in the pre-industrial world, with a population rivaling that of medieval London or Beijing. Yet, as with so many great civilizations, this grandeur was not to last forever. Over the centuries, power shifted, wars erupted, and trade routes changed. Scholars still debate the precise reasons for Angkor's decline. Some point to prolonged droughts, followed by devastating floods, which may have overwhelmed the sophisticated water system that had sustained the city for centuries. Others highlight political instability, invasions by neighboring kingdoms, or the slow shift of power toward maritime trade centers to the south. By the 15th century, Angkor was largely abandoned, its temples left to the care of monks and the relentless embrace of the jungle. The once bustling city fell silent. Trees rooted themselves in the cracks of stone walls, their roots twisting and thickening until they became inseparable from the very buildings they overtook. Undisturbed except for local villagers who continued to venerate the temples. Centuries passed. The Khmer Empire became a memory, its stories preserved in legend, while Angkor remained hidden, a world reclaimed by nature. When European explorers and scholars stumbled upon the ruins in the 19th century, they described a scene of haunting beauty, towering trees sprouting from temple roofs, roots coiling like serpents, and crumbling towers emerging from the mist. To their eyes, it was as if they had discovered a forgotten world, though in truth, it had never been truly lost to the Cambodian people. Today, when you stand among the ruins, there is a profound sense of stillness. Ta Prohm, one of Angkor's most famous temples, is perhaps the most evocative example of this harmony between nature and stone. Its corridors are shaded by massive silk cotton trees, their roots spilling over walls in graceful arcs. Moss carpets the stones, and the air carries the scent of wet leaves and history. In this temple, the line between architecture and jungle has blurred so completely that it feels as though the two have always been one. And then there is Angkor Wat itself, rising proudly against the dawn. Monks in saffron robes still walk its ancient corridors, chanting prayers that echo softly through the stone halls. The temple was never fully abandoned, and this continuity gives it an air of timelessness. Its towers, each one shaped like a lotus bud, still symbolize Mount Meru. The sacred mountain at the center of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. To see Angkor Wat reflected in the water of its moat at sunrise is to glimpse not just a monument, but a vision of eternity. This place, like Akhenaten's city of Amarna, tells a story of human ambition of rulers who dreamed of immortality and built on a scale meant to defy time itself. And yet, time, as always, had the final say. The jungle moved in, and Angkor's bustling avenues grew quiet. What remains now is a city frozen between worlds, part ruin, part living temple, a reminder of how civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually fade into whispers and stone. As we turn away from Angkor's shadowed corridors, let us drift back toward Europe, where power and wealth took on a different form. Here, the splendor of kings was displayed not in forgotten ruins, but in gleaming palaces, alive with music, perfume, and candlelight. Our next stop is Versailles, in the age of Louis XIV, the palace so grand that it became a stage upon which all of France performed. The year is the late 17th century. The sun has dipped below the horizon, and twilight settles gently over the vast gardens of Versailles. The palace glows softly in the fading light, its endless windows reflecting streaks of rose and gold from the evening sky. This is the home of Louis XIV, the Sun King, whose reign has turned this once modest hunting lodge into the most magnificent palace in Europe. The approach to Versailles itself is breathtaking. Long gravel avenues, lined with neatly trimmed trees, lead to an expanse of courtyards paved in geometric patterns. Lanterns flicker along the paths, their golden light dancing on polished stone. The palace rises before you, not merely as a building, but as a symbol, its endless wings of white stone and gilded ornamentation stretching across the landscape, designed to impress all who enter. Inside, the air is warm and scented with beeswax, perfume, and smoke from hundreds of candles. The light is soft, flickering across gilded moldings and polished mirrors. Versailles is a palace designed to overwhelm the senses. Everywhere you look, there is gold leaf, velvet drapery, intricate embroidery, and gleaming marble floors. Servants move silently through the corridors, dressed in livery, carrying trays of food, wine, and candles to keep the palace alight. Music drifts through the air, a slow, lilting melody played by a small group of musicians in one of the many salons. The sound of their violins echoes faintly through the hallways, blending with the murmur of conversation. At the very center of this world is Louis XIV himself. Known as the Sun King, he has cultivated an image of absolute power, presenting himself as a monarch chosen by divine will. His days and nights are choreographed like a performance, every gesture meant to remind courtiers of his authority. Even his rising in the morning and retiring at night are elaborate ceremonies, attended by nobles eager for the honor of assisting him with something as simple as putting on a coat. The evening begins with a formal gathering in one of the palace's grand salons. Courtiers, dressed in elaborate silks and velvets, stand in groups, whispering and watching. Their powdered wigs towering high, adorned with feathers and jewels. The ladies' gowns are vast and heavy, with embroidered patterns of flowers and birds. Their bodices stiffly laced, their skirts sweeping across the floor. Perfume hangs thick in the air, a necessity in a palace where bathing is infrequent, and sweet scents mask less pleasant odors. All around you, the palace glitters with light. Candles burn in crystal chandeliers that hang from ceilings painted with elaborate scenes of gods and mythological figures. Mirrors line the walls, multiplying the light until it feels as though the room itself glows. This is most striking in the Hall of Mirrors, a long gallery where 17 towering windows face an equal number of immense mirrors, creating an endless play of reflections. Courtiers walk slowly through this space, their movements elegant and measured, every bow and curtsy part of an unspoken ritual. The Sun King enters with measured grace. His clothing is no less elaborate than that of his courtiers. A coat embroidered with gold thread, lace cascading from his cuffs, a wig that adds to his already commanding height. He does not hurry, he never needs to. All attention is fixed on him, and his presence alone is a reminder of power. Louis XIV has built Versailles not merely as a home, but as a political tool. To live here, under his gaze, is a privilege and a way to ensure loyalty. After formal greetings, the evening meal begins. Supper at Versailles is not a private affair. The king dines in public, watched by courtiers who line the walls or sit at nearby tables. Silver platters of roasted meat, fresh bread, fruit, and delicacies from across Europe are brought out in procession, each dish presented with ceremony. The clinking of cutlery and soft murmur of voices mingle with the music, creating a low, soothing hum. Servants move discreetly between tables, their steps muffled on the thick carpets. Outside, the gardens are just as magnificent as the palace. Designed by Lantre, they are a masterpiece of symmetry and order. By evening, lanterns cast pools of light along gravel walkways. Fountains, built with intricate hydraulic systems, sparkle in the darkness, their streams catching the moonlight. In the distance, you can hear the gentle splash of water and the rustling of leaves in the warm night breeze. The gardens seem to stretch endlessly, with mazes of hedges, sculptures, and reflecting pools leading the eye to the horizon. As the night deepens, the palace does not quiet. Versailles is alive at all hours with music, games, and whispered conversations in hidden alcoves. Nobles gather in private salons, playing cards by candlelight, their laughter soft and restrained. Courtiers compete subtly for the king's favor, each gesture, each word carefully chosen. In this world, appearance is everything. Even the architecture of Versailles reinforces this message. The king's bedchamber sits at the very center of the palace, a symbolic reminder that all power radiates outward from him. Yet, for all its beauty and brilliance, life here is not entirely comfortable. The palace is vast but crowded, with thousands of courtiers, servants, and officials residing under its roof. The smell of candles and perfume cannot fully mask the odor of so many people in close quarters. The marble floors, though beautiful, are cold beneath silk slippers. The elaborate gowns and wigs are heavy, and the constant attention to etiquette can be exhausting. Even luxury carries a weight of its own. Still, Versailles remains a dazzling spectacle. It was built to impress, and it succeeds even centuries later. To walk its halls is to step into a world where every detail, from the curve of a banister to the placement of a painting, was designed to reflect the king's glory. Picture yourself standing once more in the Hall of Mirrors. The room glows with candlelight, and the polished floor reflects every flickering flame. Outside, through the tall windows, the moonlight rests gently on the still waters of the gardens. The air is warm, the music soft, and the hum of conversation fades as the night draws on. Gradually, guests begin to leave, their voices quiet, their footsteps echoing softly down long corridors. The palace settles into a kind of hushed stillness, its grandeur undiminished even in sleep. Versailles, like Angkor, like Amarna, and like that small, medieval village, tells a story about what humans create, what they value, and what they leave behind. Each world we have visited tonight has its own rhythm, its own sense of beauty and struggle. And yet, across all these places and centuries, life is united by the same steady march of time, the rising and setting of the sun, the passing of seasons, the quiet persistence of memory. Now, as we leave the glittering palace and return to the present, let your mind drift gently between these places we have visited. Imagine the soft creak of a medieval cart rolling down a muddy road, the sunlight blazing over the desert ruins of Amarna, the hush of a jungle morning in Angkor, and the golden glow of Versailles at night. Each of these worlds still exists in some form, preserved in stone and story, a reminder of the countless generations who have come before us. History can feel distant, but tonight it has become a quiet companion. You have walked barefoot through centuries, through fields and palaces, temples and villages. And now, as you settle deeper into rest, you carry with you the calm of these ancient places, the knowledge that time itself is vast and your place in it is safe. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the day melt away, replaced by the soft stillness of history's embrace. The night is long, and sleep is near. Let the echoes of forgotten empires fade into silence, like footsteps disappearing down a corridor lit by candlelight.